of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I want to thank you all for coming this evening. Thank you to Phippsburg for having us. Just had a couple of things I wanted to say. I don't say it every week, but I did want to thank all the administrators for their reports. That information is really helpful to us in terms of communicating what's going on in the schools. There's a lot of talk in some of those reports about Christmas preparations and concerts and celebrations. Also some really heartfelt words in Ross Berkowitz's report, which was a little striking. And there was a lot of discussion about professional development that's going on in the district. And I think that's important that the board know about that and know how it's working and how it's impacting the staff. And so that was really great stuff. So I really appreciate the administrators taking the time to put those reports together. The only other thing I needed to mention is this evening is Dave Barbour's last meeting on the board. And so I just wanted to say a couple of words. Dave has been on the RSU board for 2 full terms. And I say that because when the original board was elected, those early 7 members drew straws. And some had shorter terms and other had longer terms. And Dave had one of the longest, it seems like. I've served with Dave the whole time we've been on the RSU board. There are 2 words that I would use to describe him. Respectful and a person of high integrity. During the meetings that we've had, Dave has always been a great listener, a person of really high character, and someone who adds a very calming presence to these meetings. And as I've been chair, I've really appreciated that, and it's really been a pleasure working with you, the 6 years now that we've been together. I will share this one story. Dave was not really encouraged or excited about running for a second term with the RSU. He had already served terms with the Bath School Board and then a term with the RSU. And the last time around, I think he said, I've had enough. I think I've done my duty. And so I made a very persuasive call to Dave, and I said, please, we need the continuity, we need your institutional memory. Would you please run one more time? I said, I'll do my best to, really not give you a light load. I won't put you on a lot of committees. You just need to read the packet and show up to the meetings, and that's all I ask. And he said, okay, Tim, I have respect for you. I'll do it. And then the West Bath withdrawal came along, and I immediately put Dave on that committee. So about 35 meetings later, I think he's had enough. As I see it though, Dave's legacy in the RSU would be, or will be, his passionate advocacy for pre-K education. This is something that was just a little seed early on in the RSU, and it is growing and growing and growing each year. It's something that the board has gotten behind, and I think part and parcel, because of how strongly Dave has felt about that and how much he has advocated that, even during times when we had to make some difficult budget decisions. And I really want to thank him for that, and I think it will have long-lasting effects in the district, and it's going to have your name all over it. This is not, serving on the school board is not always an easy position. But having Dave on the board has made it a lot easier for me. So I speak for the rest of the board. We will miss having you at this table. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. All I can say is it's been a privilege to serve with you and all the previous boards I've served with. I think the future of the RSU is very rosy, and I feel that a lot has been accomplished in the past 10 years and will be further accomplishment over the next 10 years. Thank you all.
Thank you. Also, we have this card for you. I'll hand this to you. You can read it at your leisure.
It's an invitation to serve us.
Patrick, I'll turn this over to Patrick.
I know we have students here and parents that would probably like to get out of here and get home for dinner, but I'll be brief. But Dave has served on the policy committee for the district for close to 10 years, I believe. And I know he received some nice emails from Julie Rice and Sandy Stenquist. But I just thought I would read one of those just to kind of sum it up. It just says, "It's been a great pleasure to work with Dr. David Barbour on the policy committee. Our policy committee meetings have been engaging in sessions, reviewing school board policies, which affect the lives, health, and safety of children and young people over the entire RSU. I will say this, policy is not the most exciting meeting, it's not the most exciting work to do, but it has lasting impact. On the policy committee, we had many occasions when Dave was able to provide insight on a particular issue gleaned from his background as a physician. He provided valuable input on an array of topics such as wellness and nutrition, issues with the administration of medicines within our schools, to the use of a defibrillator at Morse High School basketball games. While his work was quiet and often behind the scenes and in the trenches, his years of dedication and service will continue to have a great impact on students and the RSU1 community. Thank you, Dave.
All right. Item 4.0, approve and amend the minutes of November 24th. Is there a motion? Okay, a motion to approve by Steve, second by Dave. Any further comments, discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion and second the motion under new business. I would suggest someone else should get credit for one or the other.
What page is that, Bill?
Good eye.
Now, first,
Okay, we will make that change. So there's a motion to approve, I'll assume with the change, as amended, thank you. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. None opposed? That passes. Adjustments to the agenda, item 5.0. Do we have any adjustments? Nothing tonight. We will move on to public session. Just want to let you folks know that we do have two public sessions. The first is to use for items that are pertinent to tonight's agenda. If you'd like to speak about something about the agenda, you can do so. We would ask that for that first public comment session, you keep your comments to 2 minutes. We do have a second public comment session at the end of the meeting, and we leave that open for any topic. So for this first public comment session, is there anyone who would like to speak? All right. We will move on to item 7.0. And we have a presentation. I'll turn that over to Patrick.
So we're happy to have Phippsburg Elementary School leadership team with us here tonight, along with Ms. Cosgrove, who's here with them. And I'd like to thank the parents and the students, for coming out tonight. And they're simply going to share some of the work that they're focused on this year. And thank you for coming. And hopefully, I will not mess up your names too bad here, but I'd like to introduce you. Okay, so we have Seth Dunlop is here, Allie Redlin, Gracie Hawks, Miranda Burpee, Caroline Strosky, and Arlena Baisley. So welcome, thank you for coming, and we'll let you guys begin when you're ready.
The leadership team came about because some fifth grade students asked if we were doing leadership. Because previous classes had done it.
Well, we're going to bring you a microphone because we are videotaping this for the television, and they'll want to be able to hear what you're saying.
So do you mind repeating the correct? Yes, right up here. When you're presenting, you want to come up here? There you go. Okay, hold it right up to the phone.
The leadership team came about because some fifth grade students asked if we were doing leadership team this year. Because previous classes had done it and it looked fun. The leadership team is fifth graders Allie, Miranda, Gracie, Seth, and William.
Mackenzie, Alina, Colin, and Delaney.
That is who the leadership team is.
The types of things leadership has done are the food drive, snack helpers, and the snack helpers are where we go in classrooms and eat snack with K1 so they will behave, and if they do not do something they are not supposed to do, we tell them nicely not to do that. The other thing we did was where we sorted extra winter clothes for all classes so they didn't forget their winter clothes.
In the future, we plan to do a spirit week, a Christmas movie, charity things, and a pet food drive.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board for the members of the leadership club? Steve?
I just want to know, are you all volunteers to the club, or were you selected by your teachers to participate?
We are volunteers.
How often do you meet?
Twice a month.
How long have each of you been on the leadership team? Just you think you'll participate until you graduate from Phippsburg Elementary?
Yeah.
Okay. You enjoy it? Good. Thank you.
And do you expect this to be a long tradition in Phippsburg? Are there students in the younger classes who are interested in the leadership team? And this is something that you'll probably participate on all through the summer as well? No, I'm just kidding. All right, any other questions from the board? All right, thank you so much. Thank you for that presentation.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Parents, you don't have to stay. No. Thank you for coming.
All right, on to committee reports. We don't have any committee reports because frankly, the committees have not met since our last meeting. I know that the Finance Committee coming up on the 8th, is it? January 8th? And when is Facilities Committee meeting again? February? Okay, item 9.0, Superintendent's Report. Patrick?
I know some of this stuff was in your reports from the principals, but I just kind of want to highlight a few of them. It's just the Lucy Calkins writing program that we're doing. We continue to use lab days, which is hard for our principals because it's a lot of stuff in the building. At the same time, and we have our consulting come from another school system, and you have probably 8 to 10 teachers in a room watching this consultant teach and seeing the students in action. And so it's good embedded professional development for our teachers, and all the feedback that we've received from our teaching staff has been very positive. So that continues to happen, and we're able to find the subs on those days to do that. The Teacher Evaluation Committee met twice now, one for I think an hour and a half, and then today was a full day thing. I can let Jen actually speak to that a little bit if she'd like to. But it was just the second meeting, and then again, that is the Chapter 180, the Teacher Evaluation System that we will bring eventually to the board before June 1st. That has a measure of student growth, but it also has other nuances that we will be adding to the teacher evaluation system. So Jen, I don't know if you want to just speak to that briefly.
Sure. It's an amazing group of people, and one of the greatest things about it is that we have a parent along with all the teachers on the committee, which I think is really invaluable. I've sat on other committees with parents, and I think it really opens up a whole other perspective to what we're doing, and it also reminds us how important communication is. So communication about this process is going to be one of our goals, as it is here on the board, because there's a lot of questions, concerns in the teaching staff, because it's just a new part of their professional experience, the evaluation process, having it formulated as the state requires us to do now. So I think communication is going to be a big goal for us to be able to help teachers understand everything that the state requirements are involved with. We've got all day today. We've got our next Monday. We're going to try to do another all-day meeting because it really requires a lot of consistent work to look through all of this information to try to find out what the best choices are for us and how we're going to be implementing them. There's been a lot of wonderful evaluation procedures going on already in our district, so we're going to try to take all of those we already do and make sure we can use those towards meeting our state requirements. I think we've got another meeting planned for a Monday in January, I think the 23rd, I'm not sure. But a lot of excitement on the team, a lot of great, I think it's very well documented or represented from all the schools and all the different grades. So it's long work, but we've got our June deadline in front of us, and we're very aware we need to meet the requirements by that time.
Thank you, Jen. Just to keep going here, we had 7 members from West Bath that attended, but also presented at the National EL Conference in Boston earlier this month. We have 2 teachers, and actually one's in attendance tonight, not to embarrass her, but Joanne Powers is here. But we now have 2 teachers in our system. Joanne was the very first, and I know I mentioned this to you before, but I think it's worthy of mentioning again, that earned national certification for teaching. And, it's the highest standard that you can get to. Some people choose that path. It's a very rigorous path, say maybe over a master's degree or in addition to it, or similar to a doctorate degree. It's different work. But again, it's the highest standard that a teacher can get to. And again, it's a rigorous process with a lot of work, a lot of time. So Joanne was our first one in the system, and Kat Henriksen, a grade 1 teacher at Dyke School as well, as Joanne is at Dyke received her certification, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago. And we have another teacher at BMS who's in the process of working towards her national certification. So it is, quite an honor to have teachers in our system to, achieve that honor, and I think we'll have more in the future. Other items that happen in the system, job surveys graduates at the high school, their induction ceremony, I think it was 2 weeks ago, very well attended. Students were dressed very nicely, and the class act, Maria Morris always does that, and we have 50 students involved in that program. I think we mentioned this last time, I think it's worth again, at our last board meeting, we had 7th graders from BMS that were at Bath City Hall, and they were at Bath City Hall auditorium, and they were presenting their research on the green grabs that they've done with the Kennebec Estuary Land Trust. And it was just a culminating activity in one of their expeditions that they're doing, environmental stewardship and Washington care. So I received a lot of nice feedback from people that were there at that presentation. West Bath School PTO was recognized for their outstanding community service by the Spirit of American Foundation, and they were honored on December 9th, along with other people and other county voters. And then lastly, just something if people have an interest, is that we have the Master Storyteller Odds walk-in will be at Woolwich Central School for an early evening holiday performance. And this performance is perfect for all ages to share stories of good cheer and generosity this holiday season. So the performance will be this Thursday, December 18th at 6 o'clock, and runs about an hour, and there's no cost to attend. And again, just because it's at Woolwich, any RSU1 family can come to that event. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Patrick? All right, so we'll move on to item 9.2, financial report. Turn this over to Deborah. If you would like to take a mic. Thank you.
Tonight's report is the end of November, and as of the end of November, we spent 31% of the budget, and compared to last year, we had spent 30.92, so we're very close. The only thing that we're spending a little bit faster in the general fund this year is tuition, and that's only because we budgeted that way. We put more tuition in the general fund for special ed, so we're hitting that just as a little bit faster than last year. Basically, once again, our tuition shortage for this year is offset by savings that we have made in our staff hiring. We gained a little bit there, but we're a little short in tuition for special ed summer school and also charter school students. So, but overall, we're on a good track. Our audit came in today, and Hank, our auditor, will be at the Finance Committee on January 8th.
Any questions for Deborah? Ben?
How does our charter tuition change? Is that increasing as a percentage? Does it change throughout the year? Is it pretty static? The kids have gone to charters, so they've pretty much gone already, and they make those decisions, or does that keep happening throughout the year?
Once they're enrolled, then we have to pay tuition for that first half of the year. So the reason why we're a little short is that we didn't plan on as many attending as what have enrolled.
But the pattern usually is we have one or two at the start of the year in a charter school and then came back. Tend not to have another pattern where, after the year is only charter school.
And are we seeing more kids? Is that dollar amount going up?
It has been a good report on that previous board meeting where like but from last year this year. Yeah, we're going, not all of them, we want to get Marshall, it's not too far away, as long as the virtual, make it well, the numbers are
I've got a question. I know that under the terms of the lawsuit settlement, that our insurance company is coming up with a portion to pay West Bath,
Right.
$50,000.
Yes.
Will that show up in our budget report, or is that independent of our budget?
That's independent.
Okay. So it's not, we won't be paying it and then getting reimbursed from the insurance company. The insurance company will be paying directly
They'll be
to...
paying directly, right. And based upon what Maine Municipal has said, they don't see that it's going to impact our rates for next year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, on to old business. Item 10.1, review of board goals. I just would like to take a moment to review these goals. I don't know if anybody has any input, questions, comments on where we stand. Anything from board members? Okay, the one thing that I would like to make, and I know it's probably going to come up or has been coming up quite frequently, is the communication piece. And just a reminder to the board and to the public that we have our State of the District meeting next month. May possibly be February. So I think it's important that we communicate, get that message out there. We need to have that meeting better attended. I think it's really informative for the public, and I think it's beneficial for the board as well to get that overall view of where we stand as a district. Anything else on the goals, Steve? Did you want to add something?
No.
Any other comments on the goals? Questions on the goals? All right.
Can we go back to finance?
Sure.
Dad, or Patrick, maybe, are we under the terms of both our oil contract and our bus contract? Are we able to realize any savings from the decline? Although diesel hasn't changed that much, it doesn't seem to have dropped anywhere near as precipitously as gas is. Are we locked in on our oil contract, for example, our heating?
We're locked in at 325. I did send an email today to Dennis Tabor just to ask if there's any way that we can move for that price, but we did sign a contract for 2 years.
I think it's worth asking, or maybe asking again.
I did ask, so as soon as I get back.
I had a conversation with Patrick. One of the things that I suggested is, in that conversation that you have with the heating oil company, maybe one of the things that you could suggest is, perhaps they could extend the contract for another year or two. So to go from an existing 3-year contract for 4 or 5-year contract, if we could see a reduction in, it may be a gift to get.
So we're the process of seeing what we can do. I'm sure we're not the only large company that's asking us some more questions on that one. We might be able to do that.
All right, we'll move on to item 10.2, which is the second reading of policy GCQC. This is the authorization to accept resignations. This is an action item. Is there a motion on this? Move to approve by Alan, seconded by Bill. Any further discussion on this policy? All those in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand. None opposed? That passes. Okay, item 10.3, second reading of policy IGA, curriculum development and adoption. Is there a motion on this policy? Move to approve by Steve, second by Bill. Any further discussion on this policy? All those in favor of the motion to approve, raise your hand. Okay, that passes. On to new business. We'll move on to 11.1A, retirements. And I'll turn this over to Patrick.
Just wanted to inform you of the people that have submitted their letter of retirement. And so I'll just go down through these and, I'd like to thank them all for their years of service and commitment to RSU1. So first we have Susan Harrison, elementary teacher at Fisher Mitchell with 29 years in the district. Karen Mace, special education teacher at Morris High School, 11 years in the system. Kathy Roberts, humanities teacher at BMS, 37 years in the system. Robin Kennison, music teacher at BMS with 34 years in the district. And Roz McLean, literacy teacher at Woolwich with 16 years in the system. And one person that's not on here that has submitted their retirement, much to my dismay, is Bud Salabello, principal at BMS, will be retiring at the end of this year. So, and Bud had a total of 27 years in the system, 14 years as a teacher, 6 years as an assistant principal, and the last 7 years as the principal of Bath Middle School. So we will miss everybody on this list and would like to thank them all for their years of service and commitment to RSU1.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on to item 11.2, approve initial contract for LaValle Brensinger. This had been an action item. I'm going to turn this over to Patrick.
So in my wishful thinking, I was hoping it could be an action item tonight and that you would hopefully approve this initial contract, but received the contract middle of last week, and really for the public, this contract is really focused on the new versus renovation study of Morris High School, and part of it would focus on somebody coming in and examining the facility and pointing out the pros and cons of the facility. The other part would be the existing site that it's located on and doing a study of the site and pointing out the concerns and any positives to the site. So we got those numbers last week that went with them, and it came from LaValle Brensinger, which is the architectural firm that we'd like to move forward with. The proposal came from them, but then it has to go to the Department of Education, and it has to go to the Bureau of General Services, which is a state of Maine entity. And all parties talk, do a conference call, and talk about, again, the pros and cons of this contract. And so questions, just so you're aware, things that have come up is, do we need to spend $23,000 to study the facility? Do we need to spend about the same amount studying the site and then receiving a report that the board, myself, and our architectural firm would present to the public, and then actually with a recommendation that would say that they would recommend that we look to renovate Morris High School, or that we look to build a new Morris High School on a different site. And so that's the process that we're working through right now. So as you know, we did have, I'm not sure, it was a year and a half ago, but we had another architectural firm do a study. Maybe it wasn't at the depth that maybe some school districts have done, but we had a study pointing out the deficiencies at Morris High School. And then we also had the work that, through the voters approving it, the work that we did with the bond. So we've been able to provide that background information to the architectural firm in the hopes that, that $23,000 figure for the facility would be reduced. Because, we kind of have an idea. Maybe it's not as detailed as we want right now, but we have a decent idea. And then with the site only being so big, 3.2 acres, that, how much do we have to do to get some good factual information that site is either sufficient or insufficient for renovation. So we're trying to be, I guess I would say, fiscally responsible, and how far do we have to go, how extensive do we have to be. So it's going back and forth, and I apologize, I'd like to have it for you tonight. Like I said in my email to you, we may have to call a special board meeting because we don't want to wait a whole other month before they can get started on this work. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I don't know if you have questions that I can try to answer.
Are there any questions for Patrick? Jennifer?
Does the process require us to look at renovation versus replacement?
It does, and the state does weigh in. They will weigh in about how extensive that has to be based on, again, the site and the facility, because obviously we submitted we submitted a lot of detail about Morse a long time ago to get on this list.
Yeah.
So again, they may not recommend that we take as long or we spend as much money compared to maybe other sites or other facilities because of the situation.
Any other questions for Patrick? Steve?
Patrick, at this point, are we pretty much driving the timeline? I mean, are we in control of the timeline here, or has the state still, does the state still need to give us certain approvals before we can conclude our initial inquiries into renovation, replacement, site selection, etc.?
No, I think we're on our own timeline as far as, something slow down the process, like this, for example. But, the sooner we can get an initial contract signed with the Valley Brensinger to do this new versus renovation study, then, it moves the process along. And then if it is deemed to build new after, the community has an opportunity to weigh in, if that's the recommendation that comes in, then another contract, and then, in addition to this contract, would come before us for looking at sites that are available in our communities. So it's, it goes through a process, but there's no calendar that we're dictated by the state. There is some sensitive time frames where you have to do study of vernal pools and some other environmental things, and those can typically happen in a certain window. And we're trying to be cognizant of that so we don't miss that window, and therefore we have to wait till the following year.
Any other questions for Patrick? So I've got a couple. So as you've described it, we need to go back and somebody needs to go back and review the contract that was initially presented to us. Is that revision going to come from the architect, or is that going to come from the state?
Yeah, basically, it would come back to you from the architect, but it would be reframed, the pricing would be different, possibly the extent of the job would be a little bit different, but it's a combination. That's what this process takes a little time, is that, you get the Valley Brensinger on the phone with the Department of Education, Scott Brown, and we have to weigh on it as well. So the next time I bring this back to you, it will be a reflection of conversations that the three parties have had, and we are all in agreement that this would be, this would be the avenue that we would go with the new versus renovation.
And then, should I assume that if there's any savings in this contract, because the state is financing the process, it would benefit the state? I mean, those savings are savings that the state would get by us not doing the full...
Right, I think the state is, when you think of taxpayers across the whole state of Maine, they're paying attention to that as well. And so therefore, asking the question, do we need to spend this much money on this study versus this study? But you're right, we do, just so everybody's clear, we do pay these costs from the district first, and then we get reimbursed by the state at a certain period of time, which is, I think, at the spring of 2018, is when we may start to see some reimbursement back from these costs that obviously our business office will keep very good track of the reimbursable costs, but you're right.
Okay, and then with a new revised contract, that would maybe take into consideration some of the work that we've already done, we perhaps could save some time, even though we're putting off approving the contract tonight, when we see that new contract, and assuming we do go ahead and approve it, it may move the process along a little faster.
No, that's right, and as well as the site assessment, we received a site detail of, the $25,000 first proposal to do a site assessment of the existing site. That we received that today via email, and it had all kinds of components to it. And again, if we decide, the three entities, if we decide we do not need every single one of those steps to be done, or those studies underneath that to be done, that would reduce the cost, but also would reduce the time it takes to do the site assessment.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll move on to item 11.3. I need to appoint a negotiating team for the current contract negotiations that are coming up with the SEA, but this is an action item. I'd like to appoint this team, myself, Jennifer, and Steve. I've talked to you folks about the commitment that's required, and this process is going to begin in January. We'll probably have a meeting prior to that. For the rest of the board members, this team is actually a subcommittee, and that committee will report back as to the progress of the negotiations to the full board. So I'm making that appointment. Are there any questions or comments on that? Okay, so essentially, would someone be willing to make a motion to approve that appointment? Okay, thank you, Alan. Motion to approve. Second by Bill. Any further discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? Okay, we have our team in place, and let's plan on getting together. If we can, we'll try and set up something before the end of the month, but I know the holidays is tough. We'll look to the 1st of January. All right, on to item 11.4. Communications, Public Relations Strategy Update. Patrick, would you like to speak to this?
I just wanted to provide you with an update. As you know, one of the board goals addresses cultivating and maintaining partnerships within the district and our community, and more specifically, to devise additional means to improve public relations and communicate the positive news about RSU1. So after, Tim and I have talked about this quite a bit. I think what happens is, as a school system, we get busy with the day-to-day operations of the school system. We know what we expect and have high expectations of our students and of our staff, and we have a lot of positive things going on in the system. However, at the end of the week or at the end of the month, I think sometimes we reflect back and say, geez, did we really share everything that we could have? And that push versus pull communication out to parents, the social media piece, there's a lot of different venues that we could be doing a better job as a school system in general. So, and some of that may come back to the board as well, the board members, with different suggestions or ideas of how board members can also help with this goal, in addition to the district. What we plan to do is work with a consultant, and actually we met with her this morning, and working with a small committee. So right now we have 2 community members / parents that we invited in, and one of them has a background in communications, and we are using a local person as a facilitator who has a background in communications and PR as well. And then Rob Morris, who's an administrative assistant in our office, that will be responsible for some of the doing of the steps that we come up with, and myself. And basically, we want to develop a communications plan for the district that will be very specific with action steps that will be shared with the board and with the district in general. So the person that we're going to use will facilitate the process and prepare final recommendations and specific recommendations in a plan. person would also research best practices, examining what we currently do, and what we have the capacity to do as a school system. So 3 to 4 meetings with the committee, and then she also will probably reach out to some board members, business people, and just community people in our district to get a feel for them. And then lastly, or in addition to that work, is designing a brochure similar to maybe a private school like Wayne North Yarmouth Academy for our high school that really just has a lot of what are the opportunities for kids, but also feedback and quotes from alumni, current students, current staff, community members, parents, just everything that would go in it with pictures of kids and just a high-end material that can go out into the public and just broadcast what our high school is doing positively. Also working with realtors and just, again, doing some things that maybe educators have been, I guess I would say, not accustomed to doing, or maybe some people uncomfortable doing, but it's something that is necessary. So I think I put in the email to you that, we're not talking about a lot of money here, we're talking about, an hourly rate for the person, we might be talking $3,000 to $3,500. To work with I guess we'll call it a contracted service with this person for a specific period of time, and then we would have a plan, and then we would execute the plan. So I just wanted to share that with you, this evening, to see if you had questions. I don't have all of the answers because our first meeting was this morning, but brainstorming even out of this morning's hour and a half meeting, some things that came up that are very easy, very simple for our district to do, that, we just, so it was exciting work, and we're going to meet again next Monday for another hour and a half, and then, so we'll have our 4 meetings done by, I would think, the middle of January, with a plan, with, and design the brochure, and then I'll be able to bring that back to you and share how we're going to support this goal.
Any questions for Patrick? Any thoughts on this? Steve?
I'm just saying, I like the balance between the development of a plan and the development of a product. Brochure, I think it's important that we look at this as an ongoing activity, and extent to which consulting subcommittee is able to give us that action plan that we can be responsible for years, years to come. It's a good idea. And I like the idea of involving a lot. It seems to me that's background.
Anyone else? Jennifer?
Will this plan be broad enough so each new event that comes up, building a new school or adopting a new evaluation plan or these big projects from school, will this plan be broad enough to help us kind of plug into it and say, okay, here are the 3 or 4 steps for doing something that's really going to impact either our community within RSU1 or the community outside of the school system? Would we be able to easily kind of do a plug and play type of thing with that? Because I keep hearing that in a lot of other areas. They say, well, how best do we communicate this, and how many things, which is hard when you're actually doing the thing to also think about the communication of it. So
Yeah, we talked a lot about that this morning, and trying to different mechanisms that would allow us to, as a district, to put out positive things, but also just, like for example, take the high school. I mean, that may be people may want to get involved in that in some way, or just to be able to push out that information to different people. Let it be using, like some suggestions have been a closed Facebook page at each one of our schools where parents can sign up, and then we can just blast this information out to them so they can have that information. A lot of different ways that hopefully we can update people, not just on events coming up, better than we do now, but also just on content and important matters that we want to get out there so that people, are not surprised or just because they can't come to a board meeting. So we definitely are looking at doing that.
Anyone else?
It's very encouraging. It's been our goal, it's something truly I wanted to do, and it's in progress. It sounds like it's got off the ground, and I'll be encouraged to hear what comes back from the committee and whatever planning that they do, how we can plug in as a board to assist it. Yeah. probably a set process for entry into the system, so I think that's what Jennifer was concerned about. And we have a set process so that as events come up, awards are given, there's a step and a process whereby that information can be plugged through the whole system out into the community. Yeah, it sounds like what we want.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, that's a great point, because as you said, Patrick, the district so often, when we're doing things for the district, we think of it through the lens of the best way to implement that educational process or that policy. We don't always think about, at the same time, how are we letting the public know that we're actually doing this thing? And I think the great thing about having someone like this in place is, if they're doing a good job communicating information, we're going to know, because we're going to get feedback that we haven't necessarily been getting back in the past. And as Jennifer alluded to, hopefully this person will develop a system or processes in place where anything that seems to be happening, that will get worked into this system so that the information gets out there regardless of what it is. I mean, my pet thing, and it has been, and again, if you bring this person on, I want more people at that State of the District meeting. And I think that's been a very successful thing that we've done, and we've had success doing it, but we haven't had success communicating it and getting people to participate. So I think that's the next step. And with everything that's going on with the high school, I think it's critical we have this kind of person in place.
I think tapping into experience from private facilities is an excellent step as well. It's life or death for them. They can't just go to the taxpayers. They got to get students in the door, and they've developed some very sophisticated systems of communication and advertising. They're good work. Used to work in one. Just about all of them have a development director, and it's one of the key people on their staff because they're going to keep kids in the seats.
Yeah.
We want to attract kids into our system and keep them in our system. We need to do that. Get the good word out there. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Alan, you want to grab the mic?
The other critical point is that we're talking about every student that we lose or every student we gain, we're talking about $9,000. And that's not play money. We've got to do the salesmanship. It's necessary to get the message out there that we are doing a good job.
Yeah, I would agree. Very good. We will move on then to item 11.5. We have a handful of first readings of board policy. We'll begin with 11.5A, policy EGAD-R, copyright compliance administrative procedure. Any comments, questions about this policy? David?
We spent a lot of time on this policy because the compliance changes almost continuously with the developments in electronic communication. Dean Emerson was very, very helpful in getting us squared away on this.
Questions on this one? Okay, we'll move on to item 11.5B. This is policy IA, instructional goals and objectives. Any comments on this? Questions? One thing I struggled with when I was reading this, although I felt that it addressed a lot of issues that we're facing in the district, I wrestled with the fact that this is coming out of, again, it's a state it's a state policy that sort of, I'm assuming, the majority of districts within the state would utilize this. And I don't know if, is there anything in here that was added that was specific to our district, our instructional goals and objectives? Because that's kind of a big policy.
I mean, the guiding principles, are something that, I think nobody can argue with. But I will give the committee credit, actually, that there were different things that we changed, wordsmith a little bit, made sure certain words, I don't have them all here tonight, I don't know if you can remember, but this was something that took quite a bit of time for the committee, and did not want to just accept. It was something that was boilerplate, that guiding principles, but I can't remember which one it was. And I would ask you guys, this is, kind of an important one, that this is just the first reading, if there's things that you want to bring up at next meeting, I think, obviously the policy committee members would be happy to do that. Do you remember?
I think I know that we worked a lot on D4. I mean, there were some things there that were in our previous policy, and that there was, and D5, there were some things there that weren't maybe just what you think would be general instructional or content driven. They were more about how do we see our citizens, how do we see our students as citizens in this world. And there was a lot of discussion about that. And I think that was who we are culturally, both as a community and school. So I think we spent a lot of time to try to make that as encompassing, but also clear to what the intent was for it.
I thought that language was great. I really like that.
Yeah.
I think we did have some old language, and I think the committee was wrestling with, we thought that was, some of that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Tried to mesh that in.
Okay.
Good work.
Anybody else on this one? Okay, we'll give it some good thought because we'll be voting on it on the next meeting. And this, I can't necessarily see a policy that's any bigger or more encompassing or more important than this one to what we do. Okay, item 11.5C, policy ID, school day. Questions or comments on this one? I hate to ask the question, but I'm going to, and I think I know the answer. Why is the school year in hours and not in days?
It was what was recommended to us, to do it that way. They did. I'm not sure why, I'm sure I have the answer to it.
Okay.
It almost seems like we could adjust your hours and have 3 days. No?
I think it has to do with when we talk about blocks of class periods, or how we segment the school day. It's segmented in hours, not a 24-hour clock. We're not really thinking of it as a 24-hour clock. It's how many instructional hours do we have in a day?
I think in the second paragraph, it does talk about, it says the number of school days shall meet or exceed the state requirement. So, I want you to break it down further.
Okay. I'd just like to know some more implications for hours versus days. Because I think about just recently, for instance, the FLOW program, and how would you quantify?
I would still call that, in my mind, I would still call that instructional time.
It is, but there you have staff there that are there for 24-hour.
Exceed the state requirement.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a rare occasion.
How does that impact you on the tail end of your
No, I don't think it's,
school year?
yeah, this is the expectation.
Okay.
I'm not sure this has anything to do with this policy particularly, but are we evaluating to get started?
I think we always do every year, the benefits, the drawbacks. I mean, we had somebody at the previous meeting that bought and talked to it. For some people, they prefer an early release. And some systems do that when you basically dismiss a new may not be as often, might be twice a month instead of every Wednesday. For me, I don't think there's anything in the perfect system. To do that, I just know that if you look at, and not everybody agrees with this, but if you look at other countries, like Finland, for example, they have less instructional time with kids, but they have a heck of a lot more professional development time for teachers. And one would argue that the results that they see are student achievement because they spend that much time with effort and energy and money on professional development time. So, but we do, we have our schedule with video, and we often, we poll people, we try to do a good job of informing you as well as the public of what the teachers do on those days, so that it's not just something where they're not working for an hour or an hour and a half. That's exactly what it is. But again, we've heard this from principals too, is that consistency is important. At the same time, if you want to bring in someone from the outside, number one, they have to be very early in the morning. Number two, work confined to, unless we get subs, work confined to an hour in the morning versus a full day with someone on occasion is nice as well. So we do, I guess it's a continuing evaluating. We haven't sent a survey out to, not that I'm aware of, a survey out to parents. Most of our conversations are internal, and something we want to do.
We did do, prior to coming on the board, that was one of our goals, is we had instated that policy of late start, and then a couple years after that, one of our goals was to make sure that that was evaluated, and we had a presentation done by staff and administration to talk about, not only how it's impacting students, but is that time being used effectively and is it valuable? And I think the conclusion was that it was. Doesn't mean that, down the road it may be something that we could look at, revisit again, but it wasn't all that long ago that we did that evaluation, let's say 3 years ago. Yeah.
It's one of my concerns when we first came on, because I was aware of the inefficiencies
Right.
going on. And must congratulate Patrick and his group for beefing that up and making it more professional.
Yeah.
And again, I would say, it's our principals. It's our principals that do the work every day. I can only get to, school here and there on Wednesday if I'm not going to have someone commitment. It's really our principals and, our teachers really leading the work that's going on as much, I think it's very well structured right now. But again, it's perfect when I'm a parent and I have 2 kids and I have to, possibly get them to daycare and pay, more money because it's an hour later on Wednesdays. And I certainly understand that.
Okay, any other questions on the school day policy? We'll move on then to item 11.5D, policy IHBB, programs for gifted students. Questions, comments on this policy? All right, we'll move on to item 11.5E, policy IHBEA, program for limited English proficient students. Questions? Changes? Okay, on to item 11.6, first reading of adult education director job description. Patrick, was there anything you wanted to speak to this one?
No, I think I told you, I think we started about a year and a half ago now that we needed to update job descriptions for various positions in the system. And so our process that we've used, and I just remind people, the process that we use is, we get some examples, we share those with the people that are in those roles and ask for their feedback and make changes as necessary. So, so adult ed hadn't been, revised in a while, so that's why we, so you see the director piece and also the administrative job description. And tonight is just, again, a first reading and, will not become finalized until January, which is the second reading. And so there have been ones that our own folks say this doesn't really apply, or I want to modify this, but it is good to have current job descriptions, obviously, and especially if, when we have people that maybe lead the system and be clear about what their job expectations are. So I don't see anything, this is just an update, because those positions haven't been done in the adult ed office, and again, it's an office, it's a position that happens after most people go home, and so, it's just, we have to rely on Pam and Sherry in the office to give us feedback on these job descriptions.
Okay, thank you. Item 11.5E, IHBEA, excuse me, sorry, 11.7, first reading of adult education administrative assistant job description. Questions on that one? All right, we move on to item 12.0, second public comment. Please.
John Straussy from Phippsburg. And I know often, as members of boards and committees, we get feedback and something is not going right, something the ship is going astray. But I think it's important that, especially in this day and age of government, that you get positive feedback.
Wait, you need a microphone for that. This is being recorded.
I moved to Phippsburg in 2001 with 2 young girls and my wife, and since we've had a third, Caroline. All my kids have been educated at the Phippsburg Elementary School. Caroline's in her 5th grade, her final year here. And I have to say, my kids' experience at Phippsburg Elementary School has been excellent. Every day they come home excited to tell my wife and I what they learned at school. Rarely do they come home disappointed. If they are, it's just something they're stuck on, that they're being challenged, and with a little help from us, Katie and I working together, they're able to pull through that. And my kids have progressed through the Bath Middle School. 2 of them had several teachers, and were very happy with the education they received at EMS. They loved Ross Berkowitz. Miss Kennison, I hear her name on a daily basis, how much they loved her. I was fortunate to help chaperone a field trip with her, and she's a riot. She really engages all the children. And there's several other teachers, Mr. McGuire, I could go on with the teachers there. Now they're in Morse High School. I have a junior at Morse and one who's a freshman. I hear the name Mr. Verney all the time, and they love Mr. Verney, John Stanton and Brian Stanton. There's just so many teachers. They don't come home cussing about their teachers. They're happy. They love the school. Obviously they love the facilities to be improved a little bit, and hopefully that will come with time. But we're just very fortunate, the leadership with our principal here, Miss Crush Plummer, things are going really well. We're thankful that our kids have had a good education, solid here. And I hope if there's parents who are considering putting their kids in Phippsburg, that they'll strongly consider it. Sometimes I think our school's gotten a bad rap in public opinion. And there was transition for a few years, and I think things have settled out, and we're really happy. On another note, very happy about the improvements made to Phippsburg over the summer, the improvement of the front sidewalk, the work done at the back of the building. I know from my wife's work on the PTA, working with Mr. Richards for the basketball court out back. He was excellent to work with. Wherever they could try and save money and work together, he did. He was really good about that. The sign in the front of the school, I think, has been a good presence. One, for the community to see the school and the different events, working together with the town hall. I think that was a positive net effect as well. So we're very thankful for that. And I just wanted to pass those words on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, your leadership has something to do with this as well.
Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, as long as he's being good to us, I think we need to express our gratitude to him for the support that he gives this school, its students, its faculty, and its administration. He's our local police chief, and he has been very supportive and helpful, and his wife, of course, has been very active with the PTO here. So, John, thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to item 13.0. Set next meeting date and location. We're looking at Monday, January 26th. Right now, it's scheduled for our central office. So does this mean we won't be having the State of the District meeting, or will it be a different date?
We're going to decide this week between January and February.
Okay.
But remember that when we can change our mind, but remember when we, back in, I think it was in the summertime, we talked about locations, and we thought they're still important to be in each community at least once, and we've done that. So now all of our meetings will be held in central office, and we'll
Okay.
see, which is a big enough facility for people to come, and still do presentations and everything like that, and take it. So we're at that point now.
Okay? 26 work for everyone? Then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So we'll go to,
Moved by Bill.
I think Dave should get
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Yeah, this is the one motion where we'll go down in the books that he made it and seconded it. All right, motion by Dave to adjourn, second by Bill. Any further discussion? All right, thank you all. Motion, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Motion passes, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.